But when it comes to ISPs giving priority to certain companies, would you be in favour of that? For example, I don't know, a video streaming service being given priority and customers having to pay more for access to other services. What's your thought?
We have concerns about that.
Okay.
The question goes back to the fundamental issue. Yes, there should be net neutrality. The access to the internet should be without restriction. To touch on the point that Martin made there, there's such a thing called OTT, over-the-top services, and these are the things that sit across broadband internet. And these services are bandwidth intensive. So there is an argument, right or wrongly, to say that these are commercially sensitive and therefore there should be charges, or perhaps not charges, or upgrade of networks that are paid for by the service provider, the over-the-top service provider. So that's one thing. I think with regard to net neutrality, one of the things we need to be aware of, and I'm sure most of the people in this room are aware of some of them, there is a raft of legislation going through Europe at the moment. Everything from standardisation of service level agreements, which is allegedly at 30% of the cost of broadband, all the way through to some of the restrictive nature of usage of the internet. And I've just come back from China on business. And China has what's referred to as the Great Firewall of China. And that's where we're headed with some of the legislation that's coming out. And that's why groups like this are critically important. And the Labour Party, the Liberal Democrats and the Conservatives all sit in the European Parliament and they're not objecting to it.
Okay, and Jack
Very quickly, by the way, something I probably ought to have said, and I'll say it now. I should declare an interest on this particular question. I work for BT, so that's where so if you want to be aware of part of where I come from on that, I would declare.
Yes, net neutrality needs to be pushed through. The council needs to come back and say, yeah, we're happy with what the Parliament has passed. Personally, I was disappointed that not all of the amendments that were proposed by a cross-group group of MEPs weren't passed in their entirety, but the important ones were, giving strong net neutrality provisions in the telecoms package. This issue of over-the-top services. Actually, pretty much everything is an over-the-top service on the internet. If we put into law that ISPs can charge different rates, have different speeds, different data transfer limits or whatever, you're turning the ISPs into gatekeepers on the internet, and that is something that we should not let happen. If we want innovation on the internet, and I'm sure that none of the panelists would say they're against innovation, but you can't say that you want innovation and then allow a small number of large companies to dictate who gets the best treatment, who gets the best access to the customer base. The two things just don't go together. You need to have an open and level playing field. And if the infrastructure is not good enough, let's build more infrastructure. Let's beef it up.
But who's going to pay for it?
Well, the same way that it's been paid for already. You have customers that pay to use the internet. The infrastructure is already being paid for, the use of it. The ISPs don't need to be paid at both ends. And one other thing about infrastructure, the infrastructure has always been mostly privately owned. Coming out of the United States, obviously went initially just between research universities, but the vast majority of, certainly within countries, not necessarily between countries, has been privately owned. But just because the infrastructure is privately owned doesn't mean there isn't a public commons on top that we need to protect. And making sure that we all have access to this public commons is vital. And so we need people in the European Parliament that will push and make sure that the Council does return this and get it into European law.
Okay, Laura Bannister.
Thank you. Yeah, as Jack mentioned, this is absolutely an issue, again, about the marketisation of commons. As there becomes more and more and more information on the internet, clearly there needs to be some way in which that gets ordered and comes to you in some kind of order of priority. You know, something has to be at the top of the list. And you can see the immense temptation there must be among internet service providers to start charging for those, for prime positions. And that's exactly why we need political regulation to make sure that it isn't just market power that has control over this situation. We need to come together as a people, as is being done in the European Parliament, to say, do we want this or not? What kind of internet do we want to have? So it's good that this kind of action is being taken. And we need to make sure that the internet stays open and with free and equal access for all kinds of organisations. Often the kind of organisations that I expect a lot of people here would most like to hear from might be the ones least able to pay for priority space. And one of the great things about the internet at the moment is its kind of the anarchicness of the internet. You know, the Green Party website is just as accessible as the Conservative Party website, despite the enormous disparity in resources that means that in various other ways we might not be as accessible. So I think that's something that's absolutely golden about the internet at the moment, and it would be a travesty to lose that.
Okay, any questions around net neutrality? Yes. Yes.
Question to the Conservative candidate. Said the Tory party stands for a safe internet. Do you feel that perhaps some of the policies are being pushed by people who perhaps don't understand technology, and there might be a problem there? I'm thinking obviously of internet filters, which are considered to be fairly inaccurate, and there's big dangers of over-blocking and so on. So do you think it's a danger by the policy around the internet is formed by people who basically perhaps don't have any understanding of technology or the internet?
I must be very careful how I word what I say here. I think it is extremely important that any policies that are put into practice are things that will work in the real world. I think it is important that we try to put policies in place that will protect children. I have two 12-year-olds. I sometimes tear my hair out in terms of what they want to watch, and we've had some discussions on the subject, and the only way we can effectively make sure they don't watch things that no responsible parent would want their children watching is to try and make sure we personally and physically keep an eye on them. There's no other way of doing it. My son isn't yet better with the internet than I am, but he probably will be soon. Obviously, after he's 18, it's his problem what he watches. But yeah, there is an issue. We do need to make sure that policy about such things is set in an informed and effective way. So my answer to your question in one word is yes.
Okay, yes.
Basically, one of the reasons that we're struggling with net neutrality is due to the consolidation of the infrastructure and the ownership of the various ISPs. Basically, they're just coming together, they're merging. It's decentralisation that keeps the internet open and free. And what happens when we centralise it is that basically you get fewer ISPs owning everything. And then they can set policy for the rest of us. That's not right. Shouldn't we be breaking them up with antitrust laws?
Well, I mean, in America, you've got the whole situation with the Federal Communications Commission, the guy in charge of that being very cosy, some would say, with the ISPs in the States, which has led to the situation where net neutrality is under threat in the States. Any thoughts on this?
I think, in principle, yes. There needs to be some way of encouraging new entrants into the marketplace. However, there's also the issue of market forces. There will always be mergers and acquisitions. There will always be growth and opportunities to expand into marketplaces and geographies. There is also a tradition of antitrust laws being brought in. The United States is a case in point when the Bell Corporation was broken up into what were known as the baby bells. 9X, Telewest, all of these companies, not Telewest, Western Bell and all these companies were formed by the breakup of the Bell Corporation because of its ability to dictate the market. So you're absolutely right. How you do that is a moot point because, well, not it's a point that needs discussing, but we need to encourage more new entrants into the marketplace. Equally, market forces count the books. You know, people are going to merge, they're going to join forces, they're going to make alliances, they're going to make market entry. So it's a trade-off between the two things, and if you have an active market, if you have a healthy market, then new entrants will fill any body.
You can't have a healthy market when the supply side controls everything. You've got to let the demand side have a say as well.
You have. You have, and that's why we need to encourage new entrants into that market in order to ensure that there is a choice for people. And you're beginning to see it in telecoms, and you're beginning to see it in utilities, particularly gas and electric companies, entering really trading businesses rather than generating businesses. But that's not enough. There needs to be work on this, yes. Perhaps they do, but that's something that needs to have sort of a broader debate than tonight.
Okay. I'm sorry. I got a signal from the back there, but I wasn't quite sure what you were.
Just worth coming up to the end of our time slot, so maybe one last quick point and discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we could move on to one last very quick point, and then we'll wrap up. So let's go on to very quickly. I'll browse through and see which might be a good one to finish with. Let's see, something that's not quite along the same lines I think we've looked at before. Why should we trust Europe, given the weight of commercial lobbying on issues like data protection, copyright and net neutrality? So this is around transparency and lobbying. Well, I think Lee Slaughter, that's a question you might have all start off with since you've got the mic. Why should we trust Europe? I don't think
We shouldn't. That's a dead simple answer, and nothing else needs to be said. We should do this in the UK for ourselves to fit our own society and economy. End of story. European Union should have no say.
You shouldn't trust any politician. All of us are fallible, mortal human beings. All of us make mistakes. None of us are fit to do things without everybody else keeping a very close eye on us and making sure what you're doing. So no, you shouldn't trust Europe. No, you shouldn't trust Westminster. You should keep an eye on all of us and try and make sure we're all kept up to the mark.
Our standpoint is that you can't regulate the capitalist system according to what the desires of the vast majority of the world's population are. If the capitalist system is in deep crisis and it's pulling everyone else down with it, this is the content of the European Union austerity being imposed, and central to that has been the European Union as part of the Troika. There are many which you can read on the way that democratic rights have been smashed up throughout the European Union over the past period. Our party is an internationalist party. We're socialists. We don't call for, we don't raise there's easy solutions here. It's going to take out a massive struggle against the capitalist system. You know, the parties here tonight, I've got, you know, nationalist parties. You know, they operate from the UK. Our standpoint is there needs to be a party which speaks the truth and is a party based on the international working class and seeks to mobilise that massive social force.
This way, and so Jack Alnutt, what's your thought from the Pirate Party in terms of Europe and commercial lobbying and trust?
I don't often say this, but I agree with the Conservatives. Yes, you should be sceptical about power in general, and it's great that the organisations like the Open Rights Group exist to put pressure on all of us, and hopefully by inviting us to sign the We Promise Charter, so tied into this event, that they can use that as a stick to beat us around the head with when we do something stupid. But the European Union, the European Parliament, you know, is just like Westminster in that you elect your representatives. That's why we're here. You know, we're standing for election. So if you don't trust the people that are there at the moment, and you don't trust some of the people that are standing, vote for somebody else. Vote for somebody that you trust or trust more than the others.
Thanks. And likewise, clearly, yeah, you should never blanketly trust Europe. There's problems of lobbying at all levels of politics, at local councils, certainly at Westminster, even worse in Europe. A friend of mine in the Green Party put it quite well. He said, we're basically being asked to choose between a banker's Britain or a banker's Europe. And of course, we don't want either. We're also a socialist party and looking towards international socialism and trying to come up with the best ways to achieve that. You certainly shouldn't trust your politicians in Europe, but you should pay attention to them and you should make demands of them. I hope that some of the demands that you've made to us tonight will be ones that we can go ahead to carry out in Europe. And please keep making them, and we'll keep doing our best to try and respond.
Okay, and we're going to wrap up with just a very quick kind of closing statement. So let's just keep it down to a minute for each of you, and we'll be strict on this. So just your final thoughts.
Okay, so a lot of the debate about digital rights, as I've mentioned, is a fight over the commons. It's a fight over whether the digital world is going to be one that's used for profit and cornered off and become something that gets traded, or is something that's open to people. It's a classic battle between corporations and people, and about whose needs are going to be put first. That's what governments are there to do, is to decide between, to be mandated to decide between different groups of needs. The Green Party stands firmly in favour of people before corporations and before profit. If you would like us to represent that in Europe, there's an election in 2 and a bit weeks. We lost out by 0.3% of the vote last time to Nick Griffin of the BNP. We're certainly going to kick him out this time, and we're very much hoping to get somebody to represent the North West for the Green Party. So if you'd like to support that, that's how you can do it. Thank you very much for inviting me and for holding us to account in this way.
Okay, Pirate Party.
Yes, as I said at the beginning, we're very much a civil liberties party. Digital rights is part of that. And I think it sends a very strong message. If you vote Pirate, that's what you're getting. There are all sorts of issues that we didn't cover here tonight. So if anybody wants to talk about anything else that we didn't cover, please come and talk to us. We need strong activists in the European Parliament on a whole range of issues. We can be that technical voice. We can have that expertise there, where others may share our view. We're the ones who are committed and knowledgeable about these issues. And it is our core focus. So, yes, we need broad support, and I'm glad that other parties do support. That's the minimum we expect. So thank you very much.
Okay. Firstly, thanks for inviting us to speak this evening. I think groups like this are critically important. That firstly, we have the debate, but also I think you need to look at what's the issues that are here today, not just from a technology or from a data perspective, but look at them deeper, look at them in the round about how they relate to other pieces of legislation that are being enacted and being done to you, because all of this comes from one place, and the only party that's trying to get Britain's sovereignty back so that we can govern ourselves is the UK Independence Party. The Liberals, Liberal Democrats, the Conservatives and Labour, they're practically one party now. The difference is the colour of the rosette, and if you look at what they say in opposition and what they do in government, there is no difference.
There is all the difference in the world between the Conservatives and the Labour Party on this issue and all sorts of issues. And I'm sorry Afzal isn't here to have the opportunity to reply to this, but I would have said it if he was here. You may have noticed when you look at what happens in government, on a number of the issues, we have been giving back human rights taken away by the last Labour government on things like ID cards. We were against things like locking people up for 3 months without trial. We believe in the reform of Europe. We will try to renegotiate the best deal we can and then put that to the British people in a referendum. There was a lot of things I would have liked to have said tonight. I would have liked to have said something about the infrastructure of the internet, such as, for example, one of our election promises is to invest more money in an innovative technology market fund to extend superfast broadband to some of the areas where it isn't already there, because no, we're talking about the internet security, we can't get on the damn thing. So we want to improve infrastructure and help with that. Thank you for a very interesting and thought-provoking evening, and whoever gets elected, please continue to lobby us all and express your concerns and hold all the parties to account.
Okay, and last but not least, the Socialist Equality Party.
Thank you. On the capitalism, we're heading into a future of dictatorship, poverty and war. We've seen dreadful events in Central Europe, in Ukraine, a coup organised by the United States and its allies in Europe to encircle Russia, and from that we had a descent into a catastrophe. We're raising that basic democratic rights for all can only be defended on the basis of the fight for the socialist society. That is how we defend our digital rights. Our basic rights have been torn apart over the last period. The last time the Terrorism Act 2000 was used, brought in by the Labour government, was just a few weeks ago at Barton Moss against the police who targeted peaceful protesters under that very law. The internet is a wonderful and fantastic development for humanity, and it has got a tremendous resource, just as every scientific achievement that you read about every week has. Just last Sunday, our international movement organised a rally with participants from 91 countries. That's half the countries in the world, with thousands of participants, to celebrate International May Day, the Day of International Solidarity. So please support the SCP and vote for us. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to round off with a very quick question to you all. If the answer to this question is yes, please raise your hand. Has the debate tonight influenced how you'll vote? If you're partisan, I suppose probably not. Yes, okay, interesting. So it has influenced, I'd say, probably about a third of the people here, and then probably everyone else is affiliated. So fantastic. Well, thank you very much to all our representatives of the various parties here. Robert Skelton of the Socialist Equality Party, Laura Bannister of the Green Party, Lee Slaughter from UKIP, Chris Whiteside from the Conservatives, Jack Alnutt from the Pirate Party, and Afzal Khan from Labour. Thank you very much. Good night.